In a small town nestled between rolling hills and a dense, whispering wood stood an old abandoned railway line. It had been closed for more than 20 years, or so everyone thought, for there were whispers in the wind that spoke of a train that could be seen gliding through the darkness at the stroke of midnight. And anyone who boarded that spectral train was never seen again. Now, most folks in town dismiss these stories as mere superstitious nonsense, the product of overactive imaginations and a penchant for ghost stories. But two siblings, 16-year-old Liam and his little sister Isabella, decided to investigate. Liam, with his insatiable curiosity and thirst for adventure, was convinced that the ghost train was real, and he wanted to see it for himself. Isabella, though more skeptical, couldn't resist the allure of the unknown and the chance to be part of a thrilling mystery. So at the stroke of midnight, when the ghost train was said to appear, the siblings made their way to the old platform, their hearts pounding in their chests like a drum solo. The night was dark and foggy, the silence broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. As the clock tower chimed 12 times, they could have sworn they heard the whistle of a steam train in the distance. Then, out of the swirling mist and darkness, a real steam train emerged, its headlight piercing the gloom like a beacon. Its windows glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light, and the sound of its whistle sent shivers down their spines. But the most peculiar thing about this apparition was that the doors of one of the carriages were sliding open as if inviting them to come inside. Now, Liam's eyes lit up with excitement. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The chance to unravel the mystery of the ghost train. He turned to his sister, his face beaming in the dim light, and exclaimed, "This is it, Isabella, the ghost train!" But Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. This place felt wrong, she thought, like a bad feeling in the pit of her stomach. She wanted to run away from the ghostly train, to escape the eerie silence and the unsettling feeling that had settled over her. "Let's go back," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't like this." But Liam was already stepping toward the train, his gaze fixed on the carriage door, which had now opened wider, revealing a glimpse of the shadowy interior. Before Isabella could say another word, she found herself stepping onto the train and sliding the door shut behind her. With a jolt, the train lurched forward, sending a shiver down her spine. As it picked up speed, the sound of the wheels on the tracks grew louder, drowning out her screams. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere was thick with an oppressive silence. The only sound was the hissing of steam and the rhythmic clatter of the train. The flickering gas lamps hanging from the ceiling cast long, dancing shadows that added to the eerie ambiance. It was then that Liam and Isabella noticed the passengers. They were seated in an unnatural stillness, their faces pale and lifeless, their eyes vacant and staring into the middle distance. They looked like living corpses, trapped in a state of eternal slumber. A sudden movement in the corner of her eye made Isabella jump. She turned to see a tall, gaunt man with a heavy mustache and a conductor's cap shuffling towards them. In his hand, he held a rusty ticket puncher. His eyes, sunken and hollow, seemed to bore into them with an otherworldly intensity. "Tickets, please," he rasped, his voice like the grinding of metal on stone. Liam, his bravado momentarily forgotten, stammered, We don't have any tickets." The conductor's eyes narrowed, his expression turning from bored apathy to something akin to predatory interest. A cruel smile spread across his face as he leaned closer, his breath hot and foul in the confined space. "Oh, I'm sure we can find a seat for you," he said, his tone dripping with false cordiality. And with that, he turned and beckoned to an empty seat in front of a grim-faced woman who was staring straight ahead, her body stiff and unmoving, just like the rest of the passengers. Fear tightened its icy grip around Isabella's heart as she realized they weren't on an ordinary train. They were trapped on a train with the dead, and the conductor, with his vacant stare and macabre grin, was their ticket to an eternity of suffering. From the best-selling author of The Institute and the Chain comes a terrifying new thriller that will keep you up at night. It began with a bang, quite literally. A bang that sent shivers down Isabella's spine and made her heart pound against her ribs like a trapped bird. Now she gripped the hand of her 8-year-old son, Liam, as they stood on the deserted platform in the driving rain. Where had everyone gone? And why? She looked back at the train, its windows like vacant eyes staring back at her. Something about it felt terribly wrong, as if the very air around it had turned to ice. Then the door slid open and a man emerged, or rather stumbled out, dragging himself closer and closer until he was right in front of them. The ghastly sight that met their eyes made Isabella want to scream, to run. It was the conductor. His head was lifted. His eyes glowed red. His face was covered in black smoke, and his expression was pure malevolence. "You didn't think you could hide from me forever, did you?" he rasped, his voice like nails on a chalkboard. "There's no escaping the midnight train." Then he snarled, baring his teeth in a grotesque parody of a smile. "But you can pay your fare, then your soul will pay the fare." With that, he shoved her roughly aside and hauled Liam toward the train. Panic seized Isabella. She had to get to him, to stop him from boarding that train. She lunged for her son, but it was too late. The train jolted forward. Through the grimy window, she saw Liam being dragged inside by the conductor. And then, just as abruptly, the doors slid shut. The bang of them closing echoed in Isabella's ears long after the train had moved away. She stared after it, her mind refusing to accept the reality that her son had vanished into that metal monster. What had that creature said? No escaping the midnight train? What did he mean? Was this the end? Had she failed her boy? Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the rain. She wanted to scream, to cry, to die. But through it all, a tiny spark of hope refused to be extinguished. She would find Liam. She had to. She spun around, desperate to find help. Someone, anyone, when suddenly she saw it lying on the platform, glinting in the dim light, something small and metallic. She picked it up, brushed the dirt off, and her breath caught in her throat. It was a ticket. Rusty, blood-stained, one-way ticket to nowhere, and scrawled across it in what seemed like smoke were the words "next time, no escape." The ground beneath her feet seemed to vanish, and the world tilted on its axis. Then everything went black. When Isabella opened her eyes, she was lying back on the platform, gasping for breath. The rain had stopped, the fog had cleared, the train was gone. People were starting to stir, to emerge from their homes, blinking sleepily in the morning light. A little girl skipped past clutching her teddy bear. An old woman watering her garden smiled at Isabella. It was as if nothing had happened, as if the previous night had been a dream. Yet the memory of the creature, of the train, and the ticket clutched in her hand was as real as the blood that stained it. Had she imagined it all? Had she lost her mind? Then she felt a hand on her shoulder and jumped. Turning, she came face to face with a tall man in a dark suit, his expression grave. "Are you Mrs. Isabella Hayes?" he asked. Startled, she could only nod. "I'm here to take you to my office," the man said, his voice low. "We need to talk about last night, about the train." As Isabella rose, she knew that she wasn't just facing the possibility of losing her job. This went far beyond that. Somehow she had to get the message across that she wasn't crazy. She had seen the creature. She had to warn the others. And as she walked toward the mysterious man, she couldn't shake off the feeling that they weren't alone. Someone or something was watching them, waiting for them.